Welcome to the Cricket 8 podcast. Oh, we've got so many hitters. Heavy, switch, loose. Can you be a loose hitter? You can today. In the podcast studio with me today, we have the rooster, Rob Barron, who's just over there counting his millions, and a few more of his betting accounts have been shut down because he had winners. We have Kritika Naidu, who came in and we brought her for a Sunrisers game and made sure that she wasn't on air for a millisecond of that game until it was completely and utterly over. And we have Mark Machado, who actually ended up being the only person who was broadcasting when both sides had a chance of winning today. Jack Hope's in the other room doing his show on the Cricket Podcast. Make sure you back him as well, the lovely Jack. But let's go here. Let's just start with this. Mark, why did KKR win the title this year?
Because Sunrisers were knackered after the game on Thursday. Was it Thursday or Friday? On Friday. Yeah. And KKR just stuck to their plan. Sunrisers had a plan, but they didn't have a... Today, they couldn't tap into their second plan, which was like, if we lose wickets quickly, we'll still keep scoring. And maybe they kind of stuck to it too much, and actually that's what got them into quicksand, which I know Jarrod's might tell me isn't a real thing, but they were in the proverbial quicksand today and got skittled at. And the KKR were quite clinical in the way they went about it. Garbaz and I got them over the line.
They'd played 2 games in 15 days, Kolkata, hadn't they? They'd won both of them. The last week, and I know none of us are over in Chennai, but Andre Russell walked out on the field today and was sweating crazy. We know how hot it has been. I remember one time talking to the Australian team about the Indians and saying it'd be harder for you guys to play them because they're more used to playing in this kind of weather that you are in Australia. The Australian team going, at this temperature, no one's used to it. It was a very grueling 3 games for the Sunrisers, wasn't it? We're not giving them excuses, but physically, that was hard to come back from Friday's game.
It was, but also, I mean, this is one of the problems that, we've spoken about a lot of times on the show about Sunrisers' top order and their heavy reliance on it. And when neither of them click like today, then they tend to struggle. I mean, we did speak of Klassen coming into form and all of that, but it was just one of those days where nothing really worked out for them. Plus, like Rob mentioned earlier, it's just that you didn't have that anchor role. And like he said, they're not used to it.
Yeah, they tried Markram, to be fair, in both, 2 of the games?
Yes.
And, and Markram didn't really work. Rob, the one thing that you and I thought, and we talked about a lot, was that the Sunrisers were overperforming. Just my biggest worry with the team at any stage is too many players are in form at the same time, because that is very hard to replicate all the way through the season. That is essentially what happened to the Sunrisers. That regression that we saw in these last 3 games is normal. There'll be lots of talks about choking and everything else, but Travis Head and Abhishek Sharma had overperformed, right? Yeah. Eventually, they were due to come back to earth, and unfortunately, it happened at the wrong time.
So what happened there is that did happen, and it also happened for KKR, because KKR lost Salt, and they swapped him for Garbaz, who is the same level of wicketkeeper, but a worse bat at this moment in time.
Yep.
And Narayan did regress to his mean of not being incredibly lucky and scoring 80 every single time. But KKR had people that could cover for that because they've got 2 of the absolute best spinners. Chakravarti got 20 wickets in the IPL, and Narayan was the best containing spinner in the tournament. They had them all the way through, and they both performed really well all the way through with the ball. And Stark turned up at the end, and that was huge for them. So basically, they had a strategy, did SRH, of let's whack it all the time and see how we get on. Yeah. Because we finished last year, so why the hell not? And it was great, and they did really well. And one of Head or Abhishek, or sometimes both, went bananas. And when both of them went bananas, they obliterated teams. Yeah. But they can't turn 20 spinners because they haven't got any. And when the pitch was ragging sideways, which it did last game,
part-timers,
anyone could have bowled on it.
Yep.
Shabazz went for no runs and got a load of wickets, and so did Abhishek, who doesn't really bowl. But when there was a pitch, I think they got the worst of the conditions in the final, to be fair. It did hoop around corners early, but that is not what you want when you're loaded with whackers, and then Reddy comes in when they're 20 for 3 and doesn't know what to do because it's his 21st birthday. So how is he supposed to be mature enough to work out how to play the innings there? Klassen couldn't do it today with however many he got, 12 or 15 or whatever. I think what we have seen in this IPL is a bit of a changing of the guard from the classical planning Chennai and Rajasthan of the bright cricket. And there's a time and a place for that, usually when the pitches are tricky, but they've not gone hard enough. and that's why they didn't end up in the final, and why Chennai finished 6th or whatever, is because the other teams had leapt miles ahead with the mega intent early, and with the impact sub, you get the one extra bat. KKR had Ramandi at number 9 in some matches, who's hitting a 6 every 5 balls. Right? It's a complete gun. He faced he only played about half a game.
He barely batted.
Yeah, it's a total gun. And you're allowed to have him at 9, which gives you the license to chuck Narine up at the top and hope he comes off. And he came off for 2/3 of a season.
Yeah.
He scored 400 and something, 500 odd runs at 170. It gives you all those options. And Chennai got left behind. Rajasthan were nearly clever enough to get themselves into the final. But I think what we've seen is something that probably should have happened a few years back in T20. The fact that the power play is finished doesn't mean you have to stop trying to score quickly. And the teams that carried on whacking both ended up in the final.
Another thing that happened with Kolkata is there was a point in this season when Narine would drag it back every time, Mark. But that was it.
Yeah.
Right? Then Chakravarti, about halfway through the season, starts taking wickets again and starts bowling normally. So now they have that vice grip in the middle, which before the season, I thought that was a given. They were going to have that. Right. But they also then added another part of that, which was Aurora and Stark started swinging the ball, especially towards the end of the season, although Aurora was good, for a long period. So now they had the ability to take new ball wickets, and then they could clamp you in the middle. And on top of that, Harshit Rana and Andre Russell took wickets. So you like this? They took 57 of their I think this is right. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I think they took 57 of the last 60 available wickets.
Wow.
Right? The first half of the year, that wasn't happening. We're talking about them batting and everything else. You compare that to Sunrisers bowling, which sometimes was okay. That's a whole different level, right? That's a lot of wickets.
What I want to know, I'll kind of throw it back to you almost, is...
That's not how this podcast works, but fine.
Is how do, what did KKR management do? What did their brains trust do to make sure that their best players were taking wickets at the business end of the tournament and get their players in form at the business end? You look at Mitchell Stark, they came into so much criticism for how much money they spent on him. It looked like it was money badly spent until right the moment when he needs to come through. And then now you look at it and you're like, genius.
How much of it is dumb luck that the ball swung a lot more at the end of the tournament, right? That's not Stark ball, one of the best balls we've seen in the entire tournament. That game that gets any test batter out in the world. The ball that he bowled today. Poor Abhishek looked terrible playing it because he doesn't understand that kind of delivery. But how much of it is we didn't know when we got to the final few games the ball was going to swing around corners. Suddenly it's swinging around corners. That has worked for them. If it doesn't, does Aurora and Stark get absolutely hammered, and then the spinners have to play a part. But they always had they had 2 bites at the cherry, and if you think about it, that with Harshit and Andre Russell, they maybe had 3 bites, right? If it doesn't work with the new ball, great. We'll go to Narine early on, and then we'll go to Chakravarti, which I really like. And if one of them gets hit, which is rare, but Chakravarti sometimes can get hit. Okay, well, Andre Russell and Harshit Rana are going to attack and bowl short and bowl slow balls and try all sorts of things, and one of them will get a wicket. That gives you 3 great chances. And if you think about it, they didn't win this tournament really with death bowling, because that was the one thing they didn't have. They're pretty good up until about the 16th over, and then it can go pretty bad for them, can't it, Kritika?
Yeah, and also I feel like there was a lot of stability in terms of them sticking with their players. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, last season, even in 2022 and 2023, they used 7 different openers, but this time they stuck with Phil Salt. I mean, it was also a bit of, you can call it luck that, Phil Salt went unsold in the auction, but they got, him as a replacement for Jason Roy, and that kind of just worked for them. But even with Stark, having gone for, I think, 100 runs in, there was some stat like that in, 4 games or something initially, like in, at the beginning of the tournament, but they just stuck through with him and he delivered when it mattered the most. So I feel like that stability gave, even their lineup confidence. It gave people, that sense of belonging in some sense, and they came good when it had to. And that's why they were just such a solid lineup.
Rob, they still kind of have anchors. So Shreyas Iyer is an anchor, and Venki can play as an anchor when required, or he can come in and ruin your bets like he did today.
True.
That gives him a little bit more flexibility. And Venki is almost the ideal player for modern T20 cricket, or, as it was played this year anyway, because he can actually bat. And if he has to get 30 off 30, he probably can. He may not be great against someone like Bumrah or Narine or that level of bowling, but anything else, he's quite good. But he plays with a certain sense of abandon. And Shreyas Iyer is an anchor, but he's an anchor who can score quickly against spin. Yeah. And when he gets set, he can still hit sixes. So they have those players there in a way that perhaps Sunrisers don't quite have.
Yeah.
And Markham was supposed to be that player, but it didn't work for him this year.
KKR, proper cricket team. They also have a fluid batting order. They can do lots of different things with the batting order. I've been banging this drum for a long time. If you have a fluid batting order and you can have 5 different people with pads and a helmet on, and the coach or whoever it is that makes the decision says it's your turn next because it's the right time for you to come in, and the other 4 must go, okay, no, we get it. He's better at slaying spin. He's better at rebuilding the innings. He's better against the left arm who's on now. You must have that. And what they've got in Venki, whose IPL graph of brilliance has been quite fun, it's up and down, is somebody that can do lots of different stuff. And when you've got multifaceted batsmen who aren't Jack Callis, of going back to the KKR team back in the day, who just did the same thing every time, you've got a guy that today, on what we thought was a minefield, he got 52 off 26 to win the final. All right, there was no real pressure on him when he came in.
And he lost you a bet.
But other people really struggle. But isn't it lovely to have a guy that comes in at 3 and just goes, what was he, 16 off 4 or something? And you just go, right, we've won. And if somebody comes in that spot, who is your definite number 3, your anchor, it might be Shreyas, and he's struggling to time it, and he's 4 off 11, and all of a sudden they're like, this is getting a bit nervy. Someone walks in at number 3 when you're chasing 113 and goes 6-4-4.
Yeah,
you've done it.
Yeah.
But for those at the back that didn't hear, fluid batting orders win you matches, and the teams that
probably not for a T-shirt, is it?
I'm going to get it.
Mark, Sun Narayan. I'll throw this to you and Kritika. I want both of you to answer. Is Sun Narayan just played the best season we've ever seen in the IPL ever?
So I think from when they brought him in, he's way overperformed in terms of what they would have expected from him, and he's he's very happy tonight being an IPL champion. So I think you could definitely put an argument to being that he has possibly played the greatest season ever in the IPL.
So his batting, he had a strike rate of 180 and a batting average of 35. So he did start to go out at the end of the season, but geez, he took a lot of Rob's money on the way there on some unders bets, I can tell you that. So I'd still say that's a plus batting record.
Yeah.
Hugely plus.
It sounds weird in this season, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think that puts him in the top 10 batters in the tournament.
Yeah.
Are we all happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Considering that, he went at 6.69 runs in this season, and also took 17 wickets in 15 matches. That is the equal most wickets he's taken since the old days when his action was a little bit more questionable and he got called. So he's ended up with a bowling average of 21.65. He's in the top 3 bowlers and the top 10 batters minimum.
So he's actually done 3 jobs there, right? Because he's not only scoring runs, he's scoring at the top of the order for you, and he's more than weighing in with his bowling as well, right? So he's basically 3 good cricketers rolled into one. I mean, what more could you want? Normally, if you had 2, you're ecstatic about it.
Is that the best season anyone's ever played in the IPL?
Well, it's right up there because I mean,
that wasn't the question.
Right up there. I just feel like his impact.
It's him and Shardul Thakur.
Just the impact that he's had, right? Like he said, he started off. He would give you those, quick runs early on, and then that sets back the opponent very early, and then he comes back. He stifles the batsman for runs. He picks up wickets. I mean, what else can you expect of him? Like the player of the tournament for sure.
Rob,
hi.
So very early on in the season, you said that there was no way that Kolkata could win the title. You then doubled down on it. You then quadrupled down on it. You then put your house on it.
Mm-hmm.
What stage did you realise you were wrong?
About 3 games after I said it for the 3rd time.
Once Chakravarti started bowling well, I think that was the tricky one. We expected the Ryan to bat worse. Yeah. So that bit we had factored in.
And what happened was Stark discovered his
right at the end.
Mitchell Starkness when it really mattered.
Also, having 2 Indian seamers both had good seasons. No one had money on that.
I certainly didn't see Harshit Rana doing so well and getting the 18 or 19 wickets that he got this season. I certainly didn't see that coming. I like Aurora, but he's very one-dimensional. He's just out-and-out swing bowler. Yeah. And if it swings, he's great. And if it isn't, it isn't. As I said, like when we got to the business end, we're like, actually, it's going to be at Chennai. And they've got Chakravarti and Narayan. And all the other teams, their spinners are nowhere near as good as those 2. Like they weren't on the same planet as those 2. Rashid Khan had a bad year for him.
Yes.
He bowled like a normal spinner for the whole season. And normally he bowls 4 levels above a normal spinner. it's him and Narayan in a class of their own. So they had the only one in a class of his own, with the other bloke getting 21 wickets, and they were monsters. Their opening partnership looked pretty bad on paper at the end, Gurbaz and Blind Narayan. But they had plenty of guys that had batted a bit in the season. Like Rinku didn't really bat this season.
Rinku had a season off.
He was amazing last season. He won them half the games that they won last season, or nearly all the games they won. Rinku won them all. Andre did it once this season, where he outclassed Klassen in a game right at the start.
Yeah.
But he didn't do much else. But he chipped in with really important wickets. They've got a guy they can throw the ball to. We don't rate his death bowling, Jarrod, but he's mega useful to have as a guy that can bang it in halfway down.
Yeah.
And he's a gun fielder, and he scores 30 off 10.
Also, he's an experienced player, right?
But they've got a lot of experience. They've got some bright guys. I love the fluid batting order stuff. Tactically, they're pretty good. And when we first looked at them, they looked like another team with Shreyas out of form who was going to bat too much and chew up too many balls. There was one chase they did earlier in the tournament, which I thought were going to kill the net run rate, where he scored a deliberately rubbish 40 or 40. But that got him back into form for the rest of the tournament. So at one point, they looked like Chakravarti wasn't even getting picked. Shreyas looked in terrible form and had a bad back and had been injured. And Narayan definitely couldn't keep doing what he was doing. And they were going to lose Phil Salt. There was loads of negatives then, but they solved every problem. And they did it quickly and on the fly and with cricket intelligence. And well done.
Cricket intelligence. So they use Cricket 8.
I reckon they probably watched me talking, and that's what spurred them on.
I would have thought so. There was a big thought, Kritika, that Kolkata needed to move on from Andre Russell and Sunil Narayan. We're having the same conversation about Dhoni and Jadeja at the moment. They didn't, and they've got one more title out of them.
Yeah.
But surely next year...
Oh, we're back there.
They'll be coming back again next year, right? It's a key part of having two players with all-round skills. Allows them to do so many other things.
No, for sure. And the way they've delivered, I mean, they're not giving you a reason to really look beyond or even think beyond them. And as long as somebody's performing and giving you those wins and, contributing in an all-round way, then why not? I mean, Russell, even that came against, I think the last time they played SRH in the group, the league stage.
Yeah, early on.
And then they lost those quick wickets, but then he chipped in with a 60 of nothing, like of 20 balls or something. And that's just invaluable, right? So you can't downplay the impact that Russell or Narayan has for this KKR team, and it's working well for them.
Mark, last question. We'll just go out on the Sunrisers. Pat Cummins won the World Test Championship, the 50-over World Cup, the 20-over World Cup. Will he retire with an IPL title, or was this the closest he got to it? Was it about 2 balls into this game as close as he got to it?
But my overall thought of this game is actually both the ownership groups must be absolutely gutted there's a mega auction coming up. Because, I mean, they've put together, both of them, a quite decent squads. I think, SRH are probably thinking if they could get another all-rounder in somehow, then they might have that thing with that Narayan we talked about where he does multiple jobs. I don't know what the situation will be with Pat Cummins about whether we'll retain him or not. Obviously, there's loads of factors beyond he just got you into the final that you got to consider in terms of how much they paid for him and how much it'll cost. I think his leadership's been exceptional, though, right? We saw that the way they got to the final. I think if you're probably owners, you're probably thinking, we want to keep this man on board and give him another shot at it if he wants it next season, because he might have an...
So he's still got a chance of getting the quadruple crown that none of us knew existed until I made it up just now.
Until he can complete the Kimberverse and win everything, then I think he's got to keep going for it.
I don't think anyone should ever complete the Kimberverse. That was Mark Machado. You'll find him at Muralian Podcast, occasionally producing Vanessa Feltz or local rugby grounds. This is Kritika Naidu, who came in and did brilliantly for us all the way through the tournament. That is Rob the Rooster Baron. And I want to say a big thank you to these two people, but my God, this man, we could now sell that chair because his butt has been on it so much that if you want us to dismantle that chair and have Rob Barron sign and maybe do a little lipstick kiss onto the chair so you can frame it at home, you can, because he has put in the hardest yards. Me and Rob have been on air for every minute of all the watch-alongs all the way through. And a huge shout-out to him for helping me all the way through. But that's it. We're done. We have finished. The IPL is over. KKR has won. Venki made a 50, and that broke Rob's heart but gave me more money. What more can you ask for? We will see you again very soon because I hear there's another tournament coming up on Cricket 8.